branding is the vision behind your business. It's sort of why you're doing what you're doing, what you're doing. It's the combination of those things together, you know, why and what, and then how you express that. And a lot of people think of branding as their logo, but it's also like that's part of the visual branding, but it's everything. It's all your communications. It's how, you know, it can even come down to sort of personal branding. Like, do you show up in a way that's aligned with what you're up to? Like if you're coaching executives, I mean, I had a client like this years ago. She wanted to work with executives, but she dressed very much like a hippie. And I was like, you're just never gonna, like, you gotta visually how you present needs to be more in alignment with what you want to do. Like, so it can be down to that level. Like that was the most disconnect I'd ever seen. But, you know, you want to dress like the people you want to work with. That's pretty simple. Like, who's your audience? You know, so for me, a lot of times when I'm doing the brand coaching, it's about helping people find that place that's so clear about what they really want to be doing, what they're up to and why. Like that's the heart of what you want to express. Because when you feel the truth of that, it's like what we talk about in the 3 principles. When you feel the truth behind, like that somebody's all in what they're doing. Like when somebody says, I love coaching, and you can feel it. Like you like if you're interested in a coach, that's going to resonate with you. Or trying to think of a good example. I don't know. I was talking to somebody recently about something they loved to do, and I was like, oh, it's so cool. Oh, this friend who's kind of does shamanic work. Like that's not something I'm interested in, but you can feel that, like her love for it when she talks about it. Because she was wondering if she should hire me. And I was like, you know, your vision is really clear. You're just kind of afraid to put it out there, and I can help you with that. But it's like the core of what you're up to is really clear. It's just whether you're, you know, it's kind of a fringe offering. Like how you have to get comfortable with that, or think of another way to talk about it.
I mean, they're great. Those are just great points to reflect on. And, you know, it's almost like this sort of the questions of, you know, what are you going to be thinking about on your deathbed, you know, without being so gloomy or so, you know, corny, but I mean, they're much more relevant in today, but they are really, you know, they are really big, important things that, you know, that big, important questions that take you to the essence, you know, I think they're great. Well, that's what I'm just writing something down as we go.
Well, like as coaches and as 3P practitioners, I think essentially what we're up to is waking people up. Mm-hmm. Not that you need to say that in your marketing copy, but you can communicate that feeling of waking up in imagery and how you talk about what you do. Mm-hmm. You can kind of be pointing towards that. I mean, or you can say, you know, I'm in the business of waking people up. Like it's whatever you're comfortable expressing around that vision, but it's more the sense of knowing what you're up to is going to help you communicate more clearly about that, whether you say it directly. Like I feel like I use the branding process also to wake people up, like really see who they are, their own divinity, and how that gets expressed in the world through their work. Because when you really engage at that level of the soul, it wakes you up in a different way. It takes you out of the realm of the personal. I don't usually talk about this, but I love this, just the two of you guys. It takes you out of the realm of the personal, and you're engaged in a different way, in a much bigger way in the world. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
So it's why I love the branding process I sort of made up, like that I get to see people kind of wake up to, like, wow, like they do have a uniqueness. There has been a purpose to their life, like to their experience. Not that I think we have some grand purpose, but that we're here exploring something, and that has had direction. Like there's something around understanding consciousness for me that's part of my journey, and having such a desire to serve, and who knows where that comes from, but yeah, and you can see as you look at people's lives that there's been a trajectory towards something. Like when I became a coach, with Allison's lovely nudging and holding, I felt like, oh my God, I found something where I get to bring all of me to the table. Like all this stuff I'd been studying that just felt like extraneous seeking, like I was just fascinated by all these different spiritual traditions. Like I get to bring all of that with me as a coach, all of it. And in the brand coaching is even a little more of me, like all the years I spent in design that I thought were relatively meaningless, self-serving, because I got paid so well for many years. That actually I was being shown something that it's useful now.
It's interesting. You should say that, because when I was on that silent retreat, one of the days I was just sort of caused to reflect back on the stages of my life, and also what was that about, and where were the links in the way. And it's a fascinating thing to do, because it was really obvious. It was like really performance, and then the spiritual stuff, and they're completely hardwired.
Mm-hmm.
Completely hardwired. Yeah.
And there's something beautiful that you can see about that you can share.
Yeah.
That's going to be really important to some people. You know what I mean? To the right people, to your clients.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was my computer or somebody else's.
Mine. I don't know how to switch it off easily. It's a notification coming in.
Doesn't worry. Don't worry about it.
Maybe emails on in the background. I'll put that off.
It really doesn't matter. That's fine. I always assume it's mine.
That should cut. Oh.
So yeah, coming back to that's a really interesting exercise to do.
Yeah, I mean, I've shared before how one of your questions really gave me clarity about about my USP being something about moving from helping people move from unhappiness to happiness, and my initial response was, God, that's so pathetic. And then really seeing that there was something in that, and actually I've just started writing a longer piece, and I've mentioned that whole that whole episode as inspiring me, but
that's
also
beautiful. Like there are so many people that would love to step outside of their unhappiness.
Yeah,
like that's an amazing offering, and like if you really see how that you can help people with that, that's amazing.
Oh yeah, and I really have plumbed the depths. I mean, I've been one of those people in hospital having my stomach pumped, a long time ago now, but it's I'm talking about
that what that feels like, that to be in that place, and now to be in such a different place.
Yeah,
like you also get to hold out hope.
Well, yeah, yes, exactly.
It's so interesting, isn't it? And we don't have to go, I have no intention of going into detail, but it strikes me as fascinating that here you have three women who to the outside world would appear very accomplished and everything like that, which to a degree, yeah, we are, you know, and yet all of us at some point or a couple of times have really found ourselves in those depths, our own version thereof. And it's so interesting that it's so easy to assume, you know, that's not normal or not. And yet, look, here we are, you know, we find ourselves together with that common theme. And what's occurring to me more and more these days is the disrespect's the wrong word, but how unloving we are in terms of our humanity. You know, like the self-improvement world, and you got to get better, you got to get different, you gotta, rather than, you know, we're in this sort of mad place and there are ups and downs.
And there are times when, you know, we all hit rock bottom in one way or another. Everybody.
Yeah. Where's the bit that's okay? And I remember a guy years ago saying, at some point in the future, we will actually have places for people to go and fall apart, and it will actually be celebrated rather than, oh my God, they've got some disease, or they're, you know, so they, no, that's a cracking of the ego. That's actually good news for everybody. But as opposed to shove them away, give them a bunch of pills.
You just reminded me, Alison, I came across a recording on the BBC website of Anthony Clare interviewing R.D. Laing, you know, and what a great what a great interview that was. You can download it. I don't think you have to be in Britain to do it, but it's, you know, I was thinking if you're interested, but it's a great, I mean, I know it's not Three Principles, but it's a very, you know, just a great, authentic conversation. And it's a program called In the Psychiatrist's Chair that used to be on. And he was a really, I don't know if you ever heard it, but I loved it. He was such a great interviewer. I'll put a link up on Facebook.
Oh yeah, I would love that.
It's about 45 minutes, but he, you know, he spoke about it wasn't so much the celebration, but that even in mental illness, in the throes of mental illness, there was a wisdom. I don't know if he used the word wisdom, but you know, he trusted the process of the patient, and he wasn't, you know, in the same mold as other psychiatrists. And
well, even, I mean, we're not really talking about this. I feel like I'm way digressing from branding, but
well, no, I think there's a loop back.
But years ago, when I studied psychology, I went to a fairly alternative school, and one of the things that we did get schooled in is recognizing what they called spiritual emergence. And that's like when the psyche looks like it can't bear it anymore, but it's actually having this really intense awakening. The difference between that and some, you know, like it can be misperceived as like a psychotic break when actually it's a different kind of break.
So maybe that has to happen for your true brand to come forth.
That's not what I'm not hoping for.
Psychic emergence coaching. It's painful, but it's worth it.
You'll have a total breakdown, but you'll be great at the end.
That's right.
Oh God, no! I hope not. I try not to take people that far.
It must be true, you know, the more aligned and congruent you are with your true nature, I'm imagining, generate a very different energy in your brand than if you're, you know, it's like an image thing.
Well, and that's what people don't understand, is that often people decide they want to create a business that looks very much like somebody else's, or they've seen somebody make money doing something, so I'm going to go do that. but they're not actually good at it or enjoy doing it or any of those things. And then they create a brand around that. So there's no resonance with them in what they're offering. You know, but when you really start to see, like, I love these things, or I love having certain kinds of conversations, there's just going to be more ease all the way around. And it's never a guarantee of success, but I think that when you create something that's more authentic, there's a different kind of power in the world. Like, I realized for years I've been observing this in big companies, that when I could feel, I realized I had been sensing a deep alignment with spirit. And I would have never named it in those days because I was doing really intense corporate work. And you could tell when what they were doing had a lot of integrity with who the founder was and what they were up to in the world. Like, it all comes down from the top. And you could tell when they weren't. And I would think, thought I was so good at predicting the companies that were going to succeed, but it was just sensing this alignment. And it's one of the things, when I learned the principles, I realized I'd been witnessing for years, this alignment. I just didn't have the words to talk about it. And my hope is to help people find that alignment. And then the creativity starts. Like, so then how do you create from there when you find that? Like, what are your real gifts? And what is it you want to offer the world? And the cool thing about it being in alignment too is you're much more willing to hang in there with something you really love when the going gets rough, because whose business doesn't have ups and downs? Like, even big businesses, they go through big cycles. And so do small businesses. And most small business owners don't realize that. They think they're going to open their doors and then they're just going to be successful. And they're not going to have cash flow issues or whatever. You know, they have these fantasies about what it's going to be. But just like any other business, there's ups and downs. But if you really love what you do, you're more likely. It's like with the branding, like that work gets busy and then it's not busy. But I don't imagine I'm ever going to abandon it because I do really love it. It feels like an expression of something that I've just seen a lot around. Like, I've been like wisdom has been training me in this for years. I didn't know it. You know, so when you think about your own life and the things, like, Christian, some of the things you were telling me that you've experienced and been through, like what an interesting journey you've been on between your personal struggles and then, like, being a judge. I didn't know you'd been a judge. Like, there's some interesting, like, through all of that, everything else you've done, like, there's something you're being trained for. That's what I believe. Like you are the perfect person to be doing.
Yeah. I do absolutely love what I do now. I feel very privileged, and yet there is something that I feel I haven't but quite pulled it all together as well. I mean, and maybe I never will, and that'd be okay too. But you know, because it's almost like it's one or the other. It's you know, I feel like what I'm. You know, I go to this thing. I don't know if you've ever come across it, Alison. You might have. It's called IFF, International Futures Forum. It's a kind of unusual sort of a cross between a networking thing and a kind of think tank. And I'm not quite. Anyway, you go about once a month, and I know that I'm always able to sort of make a good contribution there. People are very open and honest, but I'm conscious that nothing I do ever gets any traction in there. And I mean, it's worth going, whether I'm not going only in order to get traction. But lots of people are at quite a high level. So there'll be people who are CEOs of a charity, or they're working for something like, you know, some government department or something like that, a fairly senior level. They'll be talking about all this funding that's going out to, you know, last week somebody was talking about something that was going to fund loneliness in the elderly. And I'm thinking, you know, in the millions of pounds or something. I am certain that whatever they do, they'll be lucky if they get a 1 or 2% improvement. You know, I think you know, that's my, you know, I didn't put, I certainly didn't say that there, but what am I trying to say here? Yeah, I feel as though I just can't quite draw that bit all together. You know, I feel I have so much of value, but I can't quite transmit it. I'm just saying, you know, how about a fraction of this to run a pilot that might actually give you really radically better results.
Have you said that at those meetings? Have you said that?
Well, I have, you know, is the meeting itself is about not collaboration so much as support, and you know, so putting in a pitch. What I meet some of the people out with, but funnily enough, never the key ones who are running around with millions of pounds to spend. You know, that never. You know, I've offered to meet lots of people, but you know, and many of them individually are very interested in what I in what I do personally. But and maybe it's just a case of hanging on in there. Maybe this is a hanging on in there time, and just keep having, you know, because I don't want to be too sort of pushy either. And oh, here she comes, you know, so with our begging bowl, you know, it's not that.
There's a fine line between pushy and enthusiastic.
Yeah. I guess it's maybe just keeping one's eyes and ears open for.
Well, the only reason I say this to you is because I know I do this. Is like, I think I don't tell people powerfully how I could help them when I can feel it, because I don't want to seem aggressive or salesy, because it doesn't fit with my ideas about who I am as an introvert. Like that, oh, I just would never, I don't want to force anybody in anything, but like when I hear you talk about what you have on offer with those people, like I just want to encourage you to go talk to whoever you can, the ones who have all the money, and just say, look, it's worth you spending a little money here on something that could be way more effective.
Yeah, I mean, it isn't that I haven't done it, and you know, I suppose where I'm at the moment is that some, you know, at one point there seemed to be a certain amount of traction, and put on a thing and got some help with it, invited all sorts of people from criminal justice, and you know, had some really good information. It wasn't just me, you know, the other people involved in the field came up from England, and it was as though it was just too much. They literally, because I ended up writing a blog about it, about confirmation bias. They just couldn't actually hear, you know, it was so out of the park compared to the results that they were actually hearing, that it was sort of,
well, one of the things,
situation normal.
This is one of the interesting things, because I've been in conversations with Christine Heath about this upcoming trauma workshop, is realizing that what we're teaching is so disruptive.
Yeah.
So disruptive, to really honor that. Like for most people, it kind of just freaks them out, like that it could be this simple.
Yeah.
Like it's such a shift in paradigm.
I heard George say something the other day that, you know, part of it is we're in the overcoming resistance business. But I think it, you know, that actually probably I've got my own answer, is just continuing to, so, and it is that there is an element of judgment or discernment in how far to push without really being a pain, you know, every moment saying, oh, I've got what you need.
Why not be a pain? I mean, who cares, really?
It's not, because I think it's sort of counterproductive that people sort of punish that by, you know, respond. That's my sense. I mean, that is, you know, from a place of neutrality. I don't know that opens doors. Or...
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess where I get curious is asking them questions about, well, how do they decide something's a good idea worth listening to? And,
Well,
have, you know, what has ever caused them to change direction with what they do with their money before? So like, I'm not sharing anything. I'm just curious about, how do you guys make your decisions about what to do with your money, you know?
Yeah, no, and that's certainly the kind of conversation that would be useful to have on a one-to-one, you know, the format of the breakfast. You know, there's also an element of the spiritual to it. You know, we start with a moment of silence and we reflect at the end on a question to ask, but we're sort of there as individuals and allies. It's not, you know, it's not, to call it a networking thing is sort of a bit of a, you know, misnomer. But and I have done, I mean, in fact, one person who was talking about a charity which was going to have to close down because of a sort of idiot CEO, basically. Afterwards, I was having a one-to-one with her, and I said, "Look, I'd be happy to, you know." She has something of a sense of what I do, and I said, "Look, I'd be happy to run a, you know, without any cost, a one-day thing, and, you know, brainstorming session to get them back on track, because in fact their fundamental product is in vogue at the moment. You know, it's to do with diversity training and you know, all sorts of stuff and inclusion, and so the idea that they should go under it seemed a bit nutty. So she did take that forward, and, you know, it's sort of in the air somewhere, you know. So it's finding those moments. So I don't mean to kind of hijack.
No, I
coaching session for me.
I'm sort of trying to coach you, because what I heard and what you were saying was you heard opportunity, you know, there you see the power of what you could offer them. And I just kind of wanted to support you going for it however you could.
Yeah.
And it overstepped.
And in fairness, tomorrow, and it's so interesting that I can't remember, was it you, Alison, or was it you, Sandra, to talked about us being in the disruptive business? But I'm attached to a software company that, you know, describes itself as, you know, disruptive technology, although in fact the CEO is running the thing into the ground. But we may be hiving off, you know, a couple of women and I may be hiving off something and you know, moving more into the well-being and you know, support and that kind of thing. So I've got a meeting about that tomorrow. So I am taking opportunities as they arise. There's just sometimes that sense of frustration.
Yeah.
But I liked what you said earlier about, you know, just that hanging on, and you know, that's fine, because I can go along and I enjoy being at those meetings anyway, you know, and I'm not in any rush. It doesn't have to happen tomorrow.
This is a great conversation, I have to say.
Do you know, I'm curious, Alison, what are you up to? Because I haven't seen you in the flesh for like maybe a year or more. I can't remember.
Yeah, I suppose it was a Ken and Robin thing, was it last time? Last March or something?
Yeah.
Well, I I work with well, I'm quiet at the moment, but I coach senior execs. And less so now leadership programs. I used to do that, but it's mostly senior execs. Maybe I'll do stuff with a public body, which would be interesting. I haven't done that before. Very interesting. You know, I get on very well with the boss, let's say. He's a maverick, you know, so he's not a public servant, but he's got a bunch of public servants that he's inherited. So that could be a good car crash if I haven't got my act together about separate realities. Yeah, I don't think that will change, because I like their vibe. Yeah, so, but it's interesting. It probably has to do with branding, actually, Sandra. Just when wisdom has your business get quieter, and the whole purpose behind that is to get quiet. It's like something new's coming, a new shift needs to happen, and you can't, in a way, keep the old going and go fresh into the new, or it seems to me anyway. So some shift happening. And being quiet is part of that process, which is really cool.
It's nice to know that the quiet doesn't mean anything's wrong.
Oh, no.
Like, I know when my business gets quiet, I've come to see over because I've been self-employed for so long that it's for me.
Mm.
I need the space for something either new to be born or to see something more clearly, or who knows. I've been in such a period of creation that I miss the quiet.
Hmm. Well, it's interesting that it's really reminded me of how powerfully we can use the stillness in our work. You know, so I've just noticed the last week in my coaching how much less I've said, just to be in that space, and something always happens in a really cool way. Hmm. Mm.
Ultimately, I know I want my clients to feel the quiet we're having on the call right now, because that's going to show them everything they need.
Yeah. So there's a question for me then in relation to branding. I'm not even sure if I've got the words for it, but if, or it seems to me in my world anyway, that one of the most powerful things I do is that, not that I do it, but stillness, let's say, or silence. And then when you bring that into branding, I was looking at somebody just put up on, today's work, and it was somebody's website. And it was a coach. And it was yet, in my world, it was yet another coach who's got reams and reams and 50 pages of text. It's hurting my head. I know I like little pictures, I'm a
But you're not alone. You're not alone in that.
Yeah, I don't want lots of words. But it was just, oh.
Well, and I do encourage people to keep in mind that most of us are inundated with information. And so if your message can be simple and succinct, it will be easier for people to take it in. And I also find, like, I did my Branding Harmony website a couple of years ago, and I made it quiet on purpose. Like, I wanted people to come to it, and the people that would resonate with that would feel that there's something else going on there that you might not get from a different branding firm that has to do with that quiet. And I'm not saying it, but I'm trying to communicate it by not having it be super busy. There's not like a gazillion messages on every page. I think I'm being fairly direct, even if people don't understand what I'm talking about. It's fairly succinct because people don't know what branding is, and I'm talking about branding. I wanted there to be a feeling of quiet and, professionalism, quiet, this feeling of, because I think I'm in the business of helping people find their vision. So all the images have to do with vision. But they have to be a simplicity that's communicated, and also like a joyfulness, a little bit. That's where the chicken comes in. My chicken.
I know. I can still see that. That's one of the other cool things about yours. It's like, I can see it.
Yeah. So I do think it's, especially as coaches, if those of us, I'm not so verbal as, or as prolific a writer as many coaches, but that it's a trap a lot of coaches fall into, putting way too much copy on their website, just way too much. Nobody wants to read it. We don't have the time. in our busy lives, most people don't have the time. I think if you have a lot to say, blog. And then if
Yeah.
you really want to read, can read it.
I was going to ask you a practical question. This is what I was going to ask you earlier, but I never got around to about that. Because I fell into the trap initially with my website of sort of fitting the template, you know, filling up the pages that were there. And I know that they can be changed, and I have done some of that. But do you have any general thoughts, without going into massive detail, of, you know, how much to have, you know, how many? Because I do need to have a proper clear out, because apart from the ones that are actually published, there's also the same number behind the scenes. So I need to have a proper
blog posts or web
I've
page?
got no the blog posts. So I am quite wordy, and I think I'm not going to get away from that. And I like writing, and it's, you know, that's fine. But that's kind of separate. I'm not worried about that. So there's a blog, you know.
Yeah, because I think in the blog you can write as long as you want. You know what I mean? Like, that's where the people that really want to read will read. I think that's
exactly. And other people, not for them, exactly. But it's more the rest of it, you know, how because I had sort of about, and then about what I offer, and then upcoming events, and then about the 3 principles. You know, so I've cut that down a bit. But I just wondered if you had any general thoughts about, you know, any, because mine is not a complex business. It's me, basically. It's me.
Yeah, I mean, it's like mine. I don't say, you know, like, we could all write a novel about our bio.
Yeah.
But what
Sure could.
But, you know, like, what's important for the people you want to work with to know.
Mm-hmm.
And I go back and forth with my own. Like, mine probably should be have a little more personal information in there, because it's just kind of all my qualifications as a professional.
Mm-hmm.
Because I never know what to say about myself. It's very hard to write about yourself.
I can do yours.
That's what I was just going to say. We should all swap round. We should all take one.
Yes, I know. I'm like, oh, what do I say? Like, oh. But again, like, I think a couple of paragraphs is good enough for a bio. A couple of paragraphs.
It was more the pages, you know. I was, how many pages, and any thoughts on that? I mean, not.
I mean, I would keep it as few as you need, but also have it, like, you probably, if you're running events, you need to have an events page.
Yeah.
You want to be able to send people to there
Mm-hmm.
to find whatever you're doing next. Like, if they miss an email, they can easily look at your website and see what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Or even have, you know, a little, like, sidebar on your homepage that upcoming events, if you're running events.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea, actually.
It's kind of nice to just have, like, maybe a little summary where they can click through and read more.
Mm-hmm.
If your website's set up with a sidebar already. It just depends on how it's set up. But most coaches need a 5 or 6 page website, or, you know, one page that's got that many sections. Like, if you have one page.
You know, that's fair enough, because I can certainly, I think it's probably not more than 5 or 6, and if it is, it can easily. But I was wondering, because you'd be down to like 3 or 2.
No. And, like, you know, you need to have a contact page, even though it doesn't need to have any information on it other than, like, a form to email you. Because just for simplicity, that should be its own thing, so people can just easily find it. If they've read something and they want to contact you, they can click contact, send you a quick email, and it's done. Like, it's good to have that be a distinct page if you're doing a multi-page website.
Right.
Yeah, like, I think everybody needs a home page, some kind of overview, an about you page, an about your work page, how to contact you. And then if you do events, I'd add an events page. If you blog, I'd add a blog page. We're up to 6.
Yeah, fair enough. No, that's fair enough. No, I didn't know if I was, like, you know, making it far too complicated.
And you know, I don't say that much about the 3 principles on my website, but I work with a lot of people outside of this philosophy, and I use it in my branding work and in my regular coaching work.
I've dropped that now. I mean, I kind of felt like a sort of obligation to try and say something about it.
Point of conversation in our community, like that. you know, it's not that and I don't want to disrespect City Banks in any way or the community and everything I've learned from them, but I also think there's an opportunity to take this out in the world and in a powerful way. You're still teaching it, but it's not,
Yeah.
you're not leading with it.
Exactly. No,
Like,
I'm
you're
100%.
going to learn the 3 principles, and that's like, because that's not all that's on offer. There's more.
Yeah. No, massive mistake, a massive learning point for me. That's all dropped. And it was just confusing to people, you know.
Well, because then they think, oh, they're going to have to learn like a new religion or something. Like, what is
Yeah.
it? And if really what you're helping them to just understand their experience better, like
Yeah.
my experience, usually at some point the clients who aren't from this get curious, like, what is it that you're teaching? And then they have their own learning experience around that.
Mm.
And that's just me. That's my opinion.
No, that's very helpful. Thank you.
It's where I'm comfortable, how I'm comfortable doing it.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a web page, Alison?
No.
Website? No, I think that's great. I mean, I absolutely don't think it's necessary.
Like, I think, Alison, you probably get most of your work through referrals. Like, you probably need like a resume or something you send people, or a bio. Like, you've been referred, it's not as important. It wouldn't hurt though. It wouldn't hurt your business to have one.
No, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
This has been really fun talking with you guys.
Yeah, once again, not at all what I was expecting. Very nice.